Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I've got 3 shout outs to get to coming up at the end of the video, so please stay tuned for those. But it is a Wednesday, and if you follow the channel, you'll know that means it's time for another weekly Top 10 countdown. We do one each and every Wednesday here on the channel. Sometimes they're sports based, sometimes they're not. Last week's was about Christmas songs, so I figured it was time to get back into the world of sports with this week's Top 10 countdown. And I'm always up for taking ideas and suggestions about a Top 10 countdown. So if you have one, please feel free to let me know anytime in the comment sections. This week, we're going to do top 10 best all-time college football games. And I got this list off of a website called Odyssey.com. And if you're not sure how to spell that, it's Audacy. And you can read about all 10 of these games, and they put a couple of paragraphs in the description of each game. Of course, I won't sit here and read you all the paragraphs and all the games because this would be a 2-hour long video, but I will tell you what the top 10 best all-time college football games are. Number 10, as soon as I tell you the name of the game, you're going to know what game I'm talking about. Coming up on the 20th of this month, this game will be 39 years old. It was played November 20th of 1982. And California won the game by the score of 25-20. The game was called The Band Played, and that was because California had the ball. Stanford thought they already had the game in the bag, so to speak. So their band was on the field playing, and California had a bunch of laterals and scored the game-winning touchdown, despite of the fact that the Stanford band was in the way. So California scored late, won the game 25-20, and like I said, this game will be 39 years old coming up on the 20th of this month. And to this day, right before college football starts all through the season, anytime you see college football highlights, this game is always included. Number 9 on the list took place January the 2nd of 1987. It was the Fiesta Bowl, where Penn State beat Miami by the score of 14-10. Number 8 on the countdown is a game that I wouldn't call it this, and I don't like calling it this, but to this day, if these two teams play each other, this is what everybody calls the game. October 15th, 1988, Notre Dame 31, Miami 30, and the Catholics versus the Convicts. Number 7 on the list, from January the 2nd of 2017, the Rose Bowl between USC and Penn State, where USC won by the score of 52-49. And number 6 on the list is a game that pretty much put this team on the map, and that was the Fiesta Bowl from New Year's Day 2007, where Boise State, using the Statue of Liberty play, beat Oklahoma by the score of 43-42. And before we get into the top 5, I'll recap numbers 10 through 6. Number 10, the band played between California and Stanford in November of 1982. Number 9, the Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and Miami on January the 2nd, 1987. Number 8, Catholics versus Convicts, Notre Dame and Miami from October of 1988. Number 7, the Rose Bowl between USC and Penn State in January of 2017. And number 6 was the Fiesta Bowl, January 1st, 2007, between Boise State and Oklahoma. Number 5 takes us back to New Year's Day 1979 in the Cotton Bowl, where Notre Dame beat Houston by the score of 35-34. Number 4, just like the number 10 game on the list, is a game that to this day, when you see college football highlights, this game is included. It was November 23rd, 1984. Boston College beat Miami by the score of 47-45, and they entitled it Hail Flutie because back in 84, the quarterback for Boston College was Doug Flutie, and he threw up a Hail Mary into the end zone as time expired, and Boston College caught it and won the game. And I'll never forget it because of the fact Doug Flutie wore number 22, and you very rarely see quarterbacks wear numbers that high. Quarterbacks are generally somewhere between 1 and 19, but Doug Flutie wore 22. And then about a decade ago or so, Kentucky had a quarterback that everybody called the Pillsbury Throwboy, Jared Lorenzen, who also wore number 22, but it's just not something you see that much in college football. Number 3 on the list, everybody knows about this game, the Iron Bowl, November 30th of 2013. Auburn beat Alabama 34-28. Number 2 on the list was the Orange Bowl from January the 2nd of 1984. Miami beat Nebraska 31-30. Now, a little backstory, if you will, on this game was back in those days, and if you're new to college football or if you're a young person, you may not know this, but Miami was actually one of the powerhouses in college football in the 80s and up through the majority of the 90s, even though they have not been relevant now in about a decade. But back in 1984, there was no playoffs, nothing like that. And honestly, really, truly, there was a lot of football games that ended in a tie. And I have never liked a tie in any sport. I was so glad when college football brought in the overtime rules, although a lot of people don't like the overtime rules and don't like overtime. I would rather lose than tie. I can't stand to tie. So Miami was up 31-24. Nebraska scored and made it 31-30. Nebraska's coach was Tom Osborne, and Tom Osborne could have either kicked the extra point and ended the game in a tie, or go for 2 and try to win it and unequivocally be the college football national champions. Well, Tom Osborne, he didn't want to tie, and I wouldn't either, so he went for 2, didn't get it. Miami won the game 31-30, and the number 1 top 10 best all-time college football games is, if I was doing this list, it would also be my number 1 choice. And most college football fans I know say this is the best college football game of all time. Even if you don't like either team, this was an amazing college football game, and that was the Rose Bowl that determined the national champion on January the 4th of 2006 when Texas beat USC. An amazing, amazing football game. I can remember being at work back then, and I was on third shift, and I had to work that night. But we know how late college football national championship games start and how long most of them go. The game started, and when I took my break at midnight, the game was still going on. So I actually got to watch about the last 4 to 5 minutes of the game. And then, of course, I got off the next morning and went home and went back and watched the entire game. But I did get to see the final 4 or 5 minutes live, and it was an incredible football game. That was the year Texas beat USC and won the Rose Bowl. An incredible football game. If you've seen any of these games, whether you have seen them live or seen them since then on YouTube or wherever, please feel free to let me know. And do you agree or not that the best college football game ever was the Rose Bowl, January the 4th, 2006, between Texas and USC? And if you read these games and follow along, you'll see that every game on this list, some high scoring, some not high scoring, but every single one of them were basically one possession games that came down to the end, which is what college football should be about, but it's also have some kind of excitement on offense and defense. If you recall, back in 2008, I believe it was, Auburn and Mississippi State played a game where the final score was 3-2. That's not a top 10 all-time college football game. Yes, it was a one-possession game, but it was because you had two pathetic offenses on the field. When you sit down to watch a college football game on Saturday, you don't expect that the score is going to be 3-2. So these are games that had action on offense and also had action on defense, and some had action even on special teams, which is what college football is meant to be about. So that is this week's Top 10 Countdown, Top 10 Best All-Time College Football Games. And now for my 3 shout-outs. The first one goes out to my buddy Calvin, who actually subscribed to the channel on Saturday, and I completely forgot to give him his shout-out in the Sunday video. So Calvin, I apologize, but thank you so much for subscribing. He lives in the Atlanta area, and he is a Clemson fan and wanted me to say, go Tigers. And my next shout-out goes to my buddy Brandon, which, by the way, isn't that an incredible name? I've always heard if your mama names you Brandon, she really loves you. But Brandon lives in the upstate of South Carolina. He is also a Clemson fan and wanted me to say, go Tigers. And then my final shout out today goes out to a man who subscribed to the channel yesterday, and he's known as Snaphook. And no, of course, obviously that's not his real name, but I told him I would call him that, and that's what I'm going to call him, because he calls in the local radio station that I can pick up here where I live at, and he calls in quite frequently. His on-air name is Snaphook, so I figured he wanted to be known as Snaphook. So I'm not going to tell you what his real name is. We'll just call him Snaphook, and he lives in the upstate of South Carolina. He is a Clemson fan as well. So Brandon, Calvin, and Snaphook, thank all 3 of you so much for subscribing, and we have just passed the 800 subscriber mark. And when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll be having a giveaway. All you have to do is subscribe and comment one time, and you are eligible for our giveaway that we'll be having when we get to 1,000 subscribers. So continue to spread the word, help the channel grow, and comment one time to be eligible, but you can comment as much as you would like. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. My wife gave birth in our car on the way to the hospital. I named him Carson. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.